Redbull Rampage 2025 is in the books, and holy shit, probably one of the gnarliest, most progressive years of Redbull Rampage I've ever seen. This is kind of like my initial reaction video of all the things that I saw go down during the week of training for the male and the female events. It was emotionally draining, to say the least. And if any of you guys or girls watched and tuned in, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. Utah, Virgin, Redbull Rampage is somewhere I've been before. I've done a fair few trips there this year and last year to ride where Rampage is. And it's one of the most unique places I've ever ridden a bike. I've ridden some of the different sites, including the female site that was used this year on some of the lines that were actually being used in the event, which is really cool to see, and just seeing how creative all the riders and the dig teams would be in for this year's Rampage. I think one question that came up for me as I was watching mainly the men's event last night was, has Rampage gone too far? The progression this year was insane. I've never seen anything like it. You watch a Redbull Rampage or a freeride event and you see somebody do something gnarly, or a first time trick or a new line, and you think nobody's topping that, nobody's getting better than that. And then the following year somebody else brings a newfound talent and they take it one step further and one step further. And this year I don't know if riders took it too far. We saw some like insane things go down. One, progression on bikes, amazing to see all the new talent coming through, from 18-year-old Finley to the rookie who won, Hayden. And obviously there was a fair few riders that actually went down, some having to be airlifted off. They were heavy to watch for a fellow rider, and I can't imagine what it was like being there, because I was left almost like speechless. I think one thing that's worth noting, that if you've ever been to the Rampage sites, it's one thing watching the event on TV, but then when you actually go there in real life and you see the exposure, the level of difficulty and skill required for some of the tricks these guys are nailing and attempting, is very, very inspiring and very eye-opening for any mountain biker or any cycling enthusiast, to be honest with you. One canyon.
Sorry?
Another canyon.
Yeah.
Because on TV you see one perspective, but then when you're actually there in real life, you really do get this newfound appreciation, and it's very, very impressive and very eye-opening. So I think it's worth probably talking first about the judging this year. So judging at Redbull Rampage is always like a hot topic and always something people get up in arms about, because some people feel some riders get underscored, some get overscored. And to be fair, this year compared to last year when I was actually at the event, when I witnessed firsthand a lot of riders, or some in particular like Brendan Fairclough, getting massively underscored for his run, I believe. I feel the judging this year was actually a lot fairer, although I did feel there were some riders should have gotten more recognition, social recognition for their lines. Thomas Lemoyne, I feel, should have got a higher score with his massive drop and just rawness to his line. And then there was also Tom Eisted's run. I thought that was going to be a winning run or a podium run. But the thing at Rampage is it must be so hard to judge for the judges. They get judged on 4 or 5 different criteria, which I'll put on the screen now, which include fluidity, amplitude, line choice, technical of difficulty, and obviously it's always a judge's opinion on what they believe. And the judges have either competed in Rampage before, or they're professional free riders, so they're not just like everyday Joe Blogs people. They know what they're doing. But because it's an opinion based thing, it can be a little bit hard for some people to comprehend and understand and stuff, so it can be a bit annoying sometimes. But I felt the judging this year was overall quite fair. New talent this year, the sport has progressed into new levels that I don't think anyone even could comprehend. Riders like that 18-year-old Finley and Hayden, the first year Rampage rider who won the event, these guys are bringing tricks, style, progression that nobody's ever seen before. Like Finley is 18 years old, he's bringing like his whole unique style of freeride, and his runs were absolutely amazing. he did some really cool, I don't even know what you would call it, like a seat stand, like stood in his seat midair, which I thought was like crazy because nobody really knew like what to call the trick. And just overall steez, like he was literally riding in jeans, a t-shirt and some like slip-on shoes. That was so cool. And then obviously Hayden's run, I believe, was a winning Rampage run. He had all the boxes ticked for the judges, including some insane flat drop flip, which again, if you've been to Rampage, you'll know what I'm talking about, just how severe these lines can be. It was just the level of precision needed for that to be executed and landed perfectly. It's actually interesting seeing where the whole freeride movement is going, and not necessarily, you know, there's all this new talent coming in, but also there's someone like Jackson Riddle who has been in freeride for a long time, still really young, but brings this crazy individual style inspired like by freestyle motocross to Rampage. Like his run, I remember seeing a video where he was saying that some people were accusing him of not being able to do a backflip, so his run was literally just all backflips. That was almost just like a you to everyone who thought he couldn't pull these tricks off. The style, very unique, very different. The kit he wears is very bold, versus some of these new school riders who are literally just rocking up in a long sleeve t-shirt, slip-on shoes or sliders and some baggy jeans, and that's just how they rock. And that's kind of like how a lot of new school freeriders are going now, but I think it's just bringing a whole new element to the sport versus some of the legends of the sport like Cam Zink, who is still competing, would be wearing an actual mountain bike jersey, kit and all sorts. So still very diverse, but still very cool to see people like Cam Zink, who has, I believe, won Rampage many times with some insane tricks and skills, but now all this new talent is coming in and mixing things up. We'll talk about crashes and consequences because I feel that was quite a big topic this year, and it does bring me back to the question of just how gnarly this event is, where it'll go in the future in terms of risk management, and all sorts of the questions that are probably on people's minds. Even in the women's event, like I was watching some of the practice leading up to their main event of the builds, and seeing a fair few riders get injured before the actual main event. I believe CJ broke a wrist, crashed earlier on in practice, hurt a heel. Chelsea Kimball, who knocked her head, I think, and was able to compete. It just goes to show like how gnarly this event is. Freeride female movement is, I'll get onto that in the next section, but it is alive, it is pumping, and it's really cool to see. I was actually riding with Chelsea earlier in the year, one of the really old sites, and we were looking at this huge roller coaster drop, and neither of us did it in the end. A friend of ours, Ryan Rodriguez, did it. So cool to see. Massive mentor and good friend of mine. And then I actually saw Chelsea went back pre Redbull Rampage and actually did this drop and rode it like an absolute boss. Back to crashes and consequences. Yes, this event is very freaking high risk, and I think we saw some of the heaviest crashes of Rampage this year. Did see a fair few crashes in the women's event. I was watching the main male event, and there was a lot of course holds, a lot of like emotion, like it was quite hard to watch, like when there's a course hold for so long and you just know it can't be good news. If any of you guys watch, you'll know about Adolf Silva's crash. He'd been talking about doing this double flip off this drop that he'd made, and he didn't do it in practice because it was such a high risk move. You basically only have one opportunity to do it in your main event or your main run. He attempted it in his run, or one of his runs, unfortunately crashed pretty badly, and I think the crash couldn't have almost gone any worse.
And here is where things might get really crazy. No.
Probably the worst case scenario crash. Under rotated on the double flip and just went completely kamikaze down the landing, like not moving or anything, which was really hard to watch because as a rider you're like, what do you say, what do you do? And I can't even imagine what it would be like to actually be at the event. I can only imagine the event would have gone silent. He got airlifted off. I actually don't know. I can't really comment on his current position. I just know from the updates I've seen on the internet that he is conscious, is awake, and he's talking to family, but I don't know anything else about his injuries. And if I do find anything out before putting this video live, I'll put it in now so you guys can see that. But healing vibes go out to Adolf. That was like probably one of the hardest slams I've ever seen. But he's a tough cookie. And just to add a bit of lightheartedness to it, he did in his previous run, his actual trousers ripped mid-run, and he went through the air with his ass cheeks fully out, which was absolutely hilarious.
That is a new level of sagging.
Stop with the replays, I'm crying.
But healing vibes to him. Then we had Emil Johansson, probably one of the most technically skilled riders I've ever seen. He's come from a slopestyle background. It seemed like he took a fairly safe first run because of the wind. Rampage, if you've been to the desert, it gets very windy on the ridges and gusts can come and go, so riders, when they're in the start gate, have 8 minutes to drop. That's like their allotted window, and they can drop any time in the 8 minutes. If they choose not to because the wind is too dangerous, they forfeit that run. That's why riders get 2 runs. He dropped in and did his first run, and it looked like he played it quite safe. And then second run, did a huge tail whip off this first top drop, and unfortunately had a huge crash after that. And his bike went flying, and I don't know if he actually went off the cliff or not, but he dropped a very big distance. Unfortunately, he also had to be airlifted off the mountain as well. I did see an Instagram post by him recently, just in the last few hours, saying he was on the mend and he would share more about his injuries as he found out about them. So again, healing vibes to Emil as well. There was other people who had crashes too. Notable person was Bienve. So last year I was at Rampage, I saw firsthand this guy have one of the biggest slams I've ever seen in mountain biking.
He's a strong motherfucker. Yeah, fuck. He's strong. That is one hell of a press up.
Bent his bars backwards.
Ring is completely obliterated.
Fucking sick.
Oh my god. What a strong dude. Came up short, knocked himself clean out, was able to ride again the next day. Again, a bit of a grey space around all this stuff. I will talk about all this in this video with the medical side of things and who decides whether a rider is okay after a slam like that or like all the other slams you've seen. Anyway, this year was kind of his redemption year. Coming back, all fired up, probably one of the strongest, most skilled bike riders in freeride. Insane on a bike, absolutely insane. Coming into this event, he was one of my favorites. Great dig team, I know some of his dig team. They built him this unreal line. And then in his first run, dropped off this step down through the crack gap, I think it was called, or something, and snapped his bike completely in half when he landed, which was insane. So yeah, Bienve crashed in both his runs, which was unfortunate because I still feel he's not had his time to shine yet. But I'm sure his time will come. He's such a good rider, so talented. Just takes everything in his stride, and I'm sure he'll be back. Same with Simon Godziak, a Polish freerider. Massive crash in his run. Front flipped off a cliff. Blew up on the landing. Visor blew off. Massive head slam to the floor. And fortunately seemed okay. Like, he rode to the finish to complete his run, but it was a bit weird that he had no helmet on. So I guess he had like medics after he crashed next to him who assessed that he was okay to ride to the bottom, but then rode down with no helmet. So I don't know if his helmet was absolutely destroyed or what. A little bit questionable really, but he didn't take his second run for obvious reasons. These guys, if there's any suspect for concussion after a crash, and it's deemed they can't ride from medics, and they're obviously not allowed to ride. I don't know what the circumstances are, or like how they actually decide whether a rider can continue riding or not, because last year when BMW crashed in front of me, it was very obvious he was knocked out. Then he was able to ride the next day, and I thought it was a bit questionable, but I'd like to know what you guys think of that in the comments. It's a bit of a grey space, I would say. On a more positive note, it was nice to see Thomas Junom getting second place, because I know he's been doing Rampage for a while now. Love his style. It's almost like lazy and effortless, but definitely a lot more that goes into it than that. He had a really cool fluid line with a big 360 off the top of this really exposed drop. Like, again, videos probably won't do it justice unless you've been to Rampage. You know just how severe the consequences are either side of a rider's line. Everything has to be done with precision. Like, it's nuts. And he scored a second place. Really thought that was well deserved. Third place was Tom van Steenberg. Again, was doing some unique stuff that I'd never seen anyone do before. Doing this caveman off the drop at the top, where essentially he would start off his bike, spin his front wheel, and then throw his bike, jump off the cliff, and then jump on his bike in midair to land on the landing. Nobody else is doing that. Highly technical. Very, very cool. All these top 3 places in Redbull Rampage could have been winning runs. More focus on the women's stuff now. Women's freeride has been progressing so much in the last few years. In previous years, females didn't have a presence at Redbull Rampage. It was always just guys. And then they proved the point, which they should rightly do, and they have their slot now at Rampage, which is amazing to see. I really do enjoy tuning and watching female freeride. Like the level now is just progressing. It's so cool. So seeing Robin Gooms win women was great. She actually didn't even need to take her second run because she'd already won after the first run. Her line had all sorts of cool stuff in, including the backflip, crank flip, suicide no under, very varied. Hannah Bergman's run and George's run as well, both incredible, like really, really cool to watch. And you can just imagine where female freeride is going to go in the future. I think it's just going to continue going up. And I keep coming back to this idea that it's one thing seen on TV, you go there in person, you get a newfound appreciation for this style of riding. It is one of my favourite places to ride a bike, but it is so wildly different to riding anywhere else I've ever ridden. And you have to respect the place, and then you have this whole new level of appreciation for riders who are taking it to the highest level of freeride, building these creative lines, and putting runs together that are pushing limits. So just some thoughts of my own, like when I was saying at the beginning of this video, like, has Rampage gone too far? And I think that's going to open a tin of worms, not just here but probably across the internet, because it's probably a thought on people's minds, especially if you watched the live feed for the male event yesterday. When you're watching like this stuff on TV and your jaw drops the way mine did yesterday, and everyone goes silent, it does bring questions to the table of like how far things have gone in the name of sport, freeride, progression. Yeah, you are going to get that in every sport. Progression, it's great, it's a great thing. But is Redbull Rampage progressing too fast? I don't know if there's an answer to that. There's all this new talent coming in. It's changing the way people ride, changing the way people view landscapes and how they build things. You know, some people will just say, yeah, they know what they're doing, it's just a job, they're professional athletes, but also where everyone's just human, you know. I thought it was like incredible performance of skill, talent, courage, everything that comes along with being a Redbull Rampage athlete and freerider. But it does leave questions. It does leave a lot of questions. It's very inspiring. It definitely, watching events like this, parts of it make me want to go and push my own riding, which is again why I'm focusing a lot on freeride. I just get such a buzz out of it, and I just feel it's where I would like to take my riding, not necessarily to compete in Redbull Rampage, but take freeriding as far as I can take it. I just get such a big satisfaction from it. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you tuned in live or watched, and what your take is on Redbull Rampage 2025.